Hi, this is Jethro Jones, host of the Transformative Principal podcast. And after I finished the Transformative Leadership Summit, I got a lot of questions about how to do podcasting. And so I just wanted to take a minute and answer some of those questions. And this list of questions, I want to thank Naphtali Hoff for asking them because uh, he made it easy for me to put something into a video for anybody else who's listening. Sorry about that little text message there. Let me turn off notifications. That's a pro tip number one, is make sure you turn off notifications when you are doing your podcast, and make sure that things are silenced so that you don't get interrupted. So the first question is, why did I decide to do a podcast? So 4 years ago, I was an assistant principal and was just not pleased with where my professional development was from my district. And so I wanted to hear practical information from acting principals who were doing amazing things. And I didn't want to be stuck inside an echo chamber of just my district. So I'm stuck inside an echo chamber of just the principals I interview, and I'm okay with that because I try to find lots of diverse people that I can interview. The How did I decide on an audience? For me, the audience was really me. I ask questions and find people to interview that I am interested in learning from, that I think will benefit me as a principal. And so that's how I found who my audience was. I have really loved doing it. My assistant principal, Damon Hargraves, and I would always talk about learning in dog years. And that's really what I think a podcast allows me to do, that every week I get to talk to somebody new who's doing something amazing. And then I get to figure out how to make that work for me. And I think that that's a great thing. I think the things that have really worked well for me in doing podcasting has been getting outside of my comfort zone and asking people things. I found that people are very generous and willing to help and coach, and they like it even more when you're sharing what you're doing with more people. So if I were to do things differently starting again, I think the thing that I would do is start building my email list sooner, because I found that those people who read my emails appreciate getting them and want to hear from me. And so it's been really good once I started building my email list. But I did that about 2 years into it, and so it hasn't been very wise in that regard. I started out, and I was definitely on a tight budget. I was using an old microphone that did not sound very good. So if you go back to episode 1, you can really hear I've bought a couple different microphones, and finally settled on this one here, which is an Audio Technica, and I really like that one. I think that it makes my voice sound just fine, and it was only like $40, so very cheap. The other things to invest in, I think the best thing for me has been investing in someone to edit my podcast for me. That I found a great guy named Jethro on Upwork.com, and man, he just does a great job. His wife is an educator, and he just does an amazing job. So if you are interested in that, get in touch with me, and I will connect you with him so that he can help you out, because he is really good. When I started doing the podcast, my commute was about 15 minutes. And so I was also, to be honest, I was also nervous that I wouldn't be able to make my commitment of a new episode every week. And so I split my first interview into 2 different episodes so that I could listen to one on my drive, and that's just kind of stayed, and that's how I do it. So if my interview goes more than 20 minutes or more than 30 or 40 minutes, then I split it into 2 different episodes, and that's how I make it work all the time. And I like to keep it about that length. For me, I've been doing all the interviews and asking people things. What I want to start doing is getting more of my voice out there, so that I move from interviewer to more of an expert. And I haven't done a ton of that, but I've done it a few times, and I really need to start doing more and just schedule time with myself to be to interview myself, basically. How do I get the word out about my podcast? I really do a lot on social media, especially Twitter. That's where a lot of educators are, and so I'm constantly sharing it out on that. And every time I publish using libsyn.com, I set it to tweet out and to go out on Facebook as well. And so then I use a program called RecurPost to continually cycle through my old content so that I have a lot there. How do I get guests? That I just ask people, and that's, for me, that's just how it works. And I'm always asking people. I've always got people in the queue, and I set up a calendly.com page to schedule all my interviews, and so people can just sign up, and that way we don't have to do the back and forth, and they can sign up, up to 2 months out, and that usually works really, really well. The downloads are always free for the podcast, and I intend to keep it that way. I would like to bring on some sponsors at some point, and I'm just starting to think about that, so I'm not sure exactly what that looks like yet. But the way that I make money is from a mastermind that I do with principals, and also the Transformative Leadership Summit. And so those I'm not really making very much money because I'm putting all that money back into making sure that it's working good and a good experience for my viewers and participants. So that's where I'm at with that. The targets for downloads, I don't really have a target. I just want to help a lot of people, and so the numbers don't really mean that much. They did for a while, and when I first started, I was only getting a couple hundred downloads in a month, and now I get a couple hundred downloads in a day. And after a while, I just realized I can't focus on the downloads because it doesn't really mean anything. So I don't do very much there. And when it comes to being strategic about it, I think the real thing you've got to ask yourself is what you're trying to do. So for me, my goals were learn for myself and then help as many other people as possible learn as well. And so those are my goals, and I think that I'm doing a fairly decent job at the second one, and I'm doing a great job at the first one because I just ask questions that I'm interested in. When I first started, this took about 2 to 2.5 hours for each episode, and so it would be about an hour to record, and then about an hour and a half, sometimes more, to edit it. And so that's why investing in a podcast editor was really, really beneficial. And there's just, for me, the most important thing about podcasting is it's something that I love doing, and part of the reason why I haven't just done many solo episodes is I really like interviewing other people and seeing what they're doing a lot more than seeing, just sharing what I'm doing. So I need to get better at that, I think. But that, for me, is the most important thing, is do something that you're interested in. Your enthusiasm will come through. And even though I do most of my interviews at 6 o'clock in the morning, so I'm usually pretty tired and just waking up, I found that I can still get excited and energized and can talk to people. So those are my tips. If you've got any other questions, feel free to reach out, Jethro at paperlessprincipal.com. Thank you.